morning and welcome Nandita Ibrahim, Nandita Ibrahim to the Big Design Show. We are elated and excited at the same time, and we can't believe that we actually got her from her busy schedule to talk to us. And there are, ma'am, many students, many design aspirants, small entrepreneurs like us who are listening to you and who get inspired by your story. And what you have become today is also a result of the background, the childhood, the learnings in your early age that I'm sure you would have got. So the first question I put forward to you is, can you take us back to your childhood and the impact that it had on you to become what you are today?
Sure. Thank you, Ridhima. And it's really a pleasure to be here. There's lots that we can do as educators, as people with a design background, and I really look forward to this conversation. Okay, so now I'm teleporting back to my childhood. I think I always liked to have fun. I always I have always had good friends. And my father was in a role where we would get transferred every 2 years. So I've done Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Calcutta, Madras again and again and again. And that was very traumatic, meaning that I always thought that, oh, I'll never make friends again. I remember lying on the floor and crying when I was leaving Calcutta that, you know, Ayola, because of you, I have to leave all my friends and go away, etc. And I think that was one of the biggest learning, Ridhima, because I learned that there's nothing to be scared of. In every place, the next school that I went to, again, I had the best friends and I thought I'll never make friends again. So it really gave me, so today I'd like to say that over the years, I'm really not scared of change, and change is something that's really important because it helps you to grow, it helps you to face new facts, it helps you and to understand things. And today I've really learned that everywhere there are good people and everywhere you can have an impact. So it kind of took that fear away from me completely. One more thing I want to say about my childhood is that I was always surrounded by strong women. Both my grandmothers, my mother, her sisters, my sister, really strong, supportive women. And I was never made to feel that I'm less than a man or less than a boy or anything like that. And I think that also is something that has carried me through. I love women, I really respect women, and I continue to be surrounded by and supported by strong women. So that's something that, and when I look at the two of you and what you're doing also, I think that that's something that's really important.
So how did it impact that you actually took up design as a career? Was there any childhood, instances or somebody you admired that you actually chose to take this field?
Okay, no, sorry to disappoint you, but I think what it was is that I always wanted to be different, or I always wanted to do something different. And when I was in school, which is many years ago, and I come from a reasonably traditional family, so everybody either did, I could do my BA, MA, PhD, or do engineering or something like that. But I just wanted not to do that. I wanted to do something really different. And when I was in college and I was looking for what to do for my master's, and that's when NIFT had opened. And all the college applications were those, you remember the cyclo-style papers? We didn't even have photocopies then.
Yes.
So that was the college application. And here was this, pamphlet or brochure that said how you can conquer the world and do interesting things. And I actually applied without telling my parents. I asked my grandfather, he gave me money. And I applied. It wasn't much. I think it was 400 rupees or something. I applied, and then I had to go for the exam, and the exam was in Chennai. So I went for the weekend to my grandparents who lived in Chennai. I had chosen that center. We went there, I did the exam, and I came back, and I still hadn't told my parents. But when I got selected for the interview in Delhi, then I had to tell my parents. And my father was, I think, quite angry because he said, already your hair is all over the place and no Malayali is going to marry you. And now you want to go and do this fashion thing, etc. And that's how I went there. And I really love the fact that design is a space where you can just, keep imagining, keep doing new things, keep experimenting, and you can see what happens with that. And it brings joy, and it has impact. It's something that everybody follows. You can create, even if it's a good conversation, you can create a good conversation, and other people will see and learn and want to be a part of it. I just love that.
And as a young professional, when you came out of NIFT, did you have clarity of where you are going, or is there something you would like to tell all our students and other young people who are starting with a fearful heart and yet dreams in their minds? And sometimes we don't know where we will land, but the fact is that everybody wants to do well. And what is it like you were as a young professional out of college, and did you have these big plans, or did you know that you will be where you are today?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think what's important, the number one thing is know yourself and be confident. Be confident in who you are, and look out for things which are interesting. Look out for opportunities. There's no rule as to how you have to make your career. So when I finished at NIFT, actually in my second year, I was working part-time with my professor. He had a company. And when I finished, I joined him. And everybody was surprised because, these fancy companies come for placements, etc. But I really respected him. And so I joined him. I worked there for a year, and this is again for the students. I think for the we were working with a Japanese buyer. It was a Yoji Yamamoto brand, and they were planning to source from India. And I think I spent maybe 1 month cutting swatches.
Okay.
But now I know everything. I knew everything about fabric after that.
Okay.
But anyway, so I worked for a year. Then I went on to do my master's in the US. And even there I changed. Actually, I went to do my master's in textile marketing. And when I was doing my master's, I found that like the marketing professors and all were kind of only as good as our professors here, and I wasn't really learning much. So I switched and I did a MS in product development. Okay. And product development actually, and I guess you all know, it's the process of developing new products. And so then in that case, it wasn't about a textile or a garment or anything. It was about a parachute. So if you're making a parachute, what does the end consumer need? What are the things that need to be there in this product? Therefore, what material will you use? How will you price it? Where will you get it? It was really interesting. And I think that process has also helped me because I could be developing a new course, opening a new campus, anything that you do. And that is part of the design process, is to look at it completely. Who is the user? Yeah. What is he going? What does he need? What is his need? And therefore working backwards from that. When I finished my master's, I worked in the US for a year and a half. It was a lot of fun. And then, like all good Indian women, I decided to get married. I married actually somebody I met while I was working in India. I was working under him, and we got married in the US, and I came back to India, and then I joined Arvind Mills. So I think there's no, people will find you, you'll find. So I met one of the head researchers from Arvind Mills, Dr. Roy, in the US by chance in a buyer meeting, and he told me, when you're coming back to India, give us a call. And
Wow.
so when I came back to India, I gave him a call, and they offered me a job. They didn't really, I don't think they had a real job for me. So
Okay.
they offered me a job to open an office for them in Hong Kong.
Oh, that was the first where you landed.
Yeah.
Oh
So
my God.
then I open an office and try to start some business in Hong Kong, and I was expecting already. Sorry, students don't do that immediately, but I was already expecting. And so I went back to them and I said, I'm sorry that I can't, because I'm expecting, and you don't want to hire somebody like that. And they were really smart. They said, no, we love to have people who have families, and Arvind is a big family. And immediately I became a slave. So I left my husband in India and I went to Hong Kong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I went to Hong Kong and I was there also for close to 2 years. I had my first son was born there. My husband would come off and on, but it was really easy. And it was really easy because I only had work and my son. So I took a flat just next to my office. It was a tiny flat.
Make it sound so easy, but it looks like it's extremely challenging.
Oh no, it was so easy. When you're young and you're not scared of anything, I think it was so easy. Like I said, I would go to work. I had carried a maid also, so I would go to work, and then when the baby was waking up, she would call me, and then I would come running back, feed him, and bathe him, put him to sleep, and then go back. It was really amazing. It was very easy.
Wow.
When I came back, and of course, and everyone was like, "Oh wow, you're so brave!" And actually, I wasn't brave at all. Meaning, it was very simple. I didn't have anything else to worry about. When I came back to India, then it was more difficult because, then you have more family, in-laws, you've got to go far away to work, so many responsibilities, somebody's 50th birthdays. In Hong Kong, it was just my son and me and work. So that was
So how old was he when you shifted back to India? And he must be so proud of you today.
Well, yeah, he was close to 1. And I think he likes me. I'm not sure whether he's proud of me, but yes.
Okay. And I'm sure it leaves such a impactful and inspirational, on the kids' minds also to see that.
Can I say one more thing about why I was not scared? Sorry. So when I was in the US, and the reason I want to say this is so that people can understand that, there's always a reason for everything that happens in your life. Like I talked about how I was shifting many cities, many schools. So when I was in the US, when I went for my master's, everybody told me that, just go and you'll get a scholarship and everything. So I landed up, and very soon I realized I'm not getting any scholarship because it was a state university. All scholarships were for residents and so on and so forth. So I had come with my first semester's fees, and then I figured that I need to do something. So on a notice board, there was a flyer, and a family was looking for someone to help look after their baby. So I went. I called them first because all the numbers are written over there. So I called them, and they told me where the house was, and they said it's just a walk. And I walked and I walked, and I walked because, you know, we are not used to walking so much in India. Anyway, I went there. They had a 2-week-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. They were very nice, and they said, "Okay, come." And I said, "No, it's too far away." They said, "Can you drive? Can you ride a bicycle?" I said, "Yes." Though I'd only written it in, you know, in the colonies like that. And he said, "Oh, I'll give you. I have a mountain bike. I'll give you whatever." So I said, "Okay." Then I had to tell my parents. And I think my mother had a fit, because how can she tell her family members that her daughter is going to go and be Aya, you know, go and stay in somebody's house? And she was like, "No, no, I'm coming now. I'll buy you a flat. I'll do this. I'll do that." But my dad was really calm. He was like, "You know, only you can decide. You know the situation." So I moved in there, and I stayed there through my master's. They were amazing. Like, they did my graduation party for 70 people. They got us married. I mean, it's amazing. So I had the experience of actually maybe looking after a baby. It was a really equal house. I don't know how to say that. We just took turns. So one night, mother would wake up one night. I would make up food also, cooking. Everybody had their days. They didn't make me do anything that they didn't do. So I also learned about equality, respect, etc. And I never realized, but when I went to Hong Kong, maybe when I reflect now, that's why I wasn't scared, because I'd already done a baby.
True.
I knew that the baby will fall off the bed. I mean, I knew everything that was going to come. So again, that helped me become a little more, I don't know whether the word is fearless or confident. And sorry.
This is a very important and a very impactful message to everyone, that you do not become self-sufficient, or you do not become independent overnight. It is actually a summation of a lot of instances in your life, and the courage that you build up over a period of time. So you cannot expect to achieve something if you've not been through the real struggle. That has to come. You have to go through it. You have to cross it with a lot of dignity. And I think that's exactly what you did. And we can't thank you enough for sharing this, because many a times as Indians, we judge what we are doing too soon and not realize that these are the smaller steps which will actually take us to where we want to be.
Yeah, Ridhima, and I think that it's not, I mean, I'm sure it was a struggle then. I'm sure, of course, it was very difficult. Going to work, coming back, and then I used to go back to work, back to college at 8:39 after all the dinner and everything was over. And I remember when I was doing my final dissertation, then I had a friend with me, and when the college everything had to close at 2:00 at night. So then he and I would sit down near the ledge in the lab. So till the guard goes and locks everything, and then finish our work or what. So it was difficult, but it's fun also.
Yes.
And in retrospect, it's amazing. Nobody can take away from you everything that you've done, everything that you've learned. You're building the story of your life. So don't worry too much. There will be struggles, but that's part of life, and maybe accept it sometimes. Say, okay, this is something shitty that's happening, but let me see what I can do with it, where I can go with it, and what I want my story to be.
That's so beautifully put. You're writing your own story. Many times we don't even know, what's in store for us. We don't know we are writing our own story. So after Arvind Mills and going to Hong Kong then, and then coming back to India.
So I worked with Arvind in India also when I came back. And I was, I think by then I was slotted in sales and marketing. So they made me head of marketing for the knit division in North India. And it was a really good company, strong values, good people. I liked it, but I think it became a little difficult because when my son was around 4 or so, I realized that when I was coming home, I was tired and I was wishing that he was asleep. And I thought, that's not fair. That's really not fair. And why have I been given so many? I mean, my parents have given me so many experiences. I've had so many experiences. And is it not my job to give that to my children also? So I quit Urban Mills, and then I didn't know where, because they were also willing to introduce me to many people. I didn't know where I wanted to go. And that's when I joined Pearl. I thought that being a teacher or being in academics would be less stressful or make me work less, which is not true at all. But what I really liked about the director then at Pearl, his name was Dr. Nair, and the team was, again, it seemed to be a place of strong values, where everybody respected each other, talked to each other well. There was exposure, education, and I had something to offer, because it was becoming more and more evident that you need to bring the industry practice into the classroom so that students can get real examples. And that's when I joined Pearl. So that was 2001.
So, as essentially women, there are times that there could be a little gap in what we are doing, while we are also finding ourselves in the journey and trying to understand what we want to do. Like you said, that after Arvind Mills to Pearl, the little breathing or the thinking space that you got, you were still trying to figure out what is it that you would like to do. Was there, even the smallest of gap between the two roles, or you could just jump on from one wagon to the other, since I'm sure the industry saw the talent and whatever you had to offer?
In terms of time, no, there was no gap. But yeah, so I just joined them directly, but I have seen a lot of women, a lot of colleagues who, of course, take breaks because maybe you've had a baby, maybe you got married, you shifted cities, etc. And it's quite difficult emotionally and mentally, I think, to adjust to not being productive, because we all want to do something and be something. I've also mentored a few people like that. And my advice would be that it's okay. Whatever happens in your life will happen, but don't give up learning. Use that as an opportunity to try something new. Today, everything is possible. Today, the smallest entrepreneurs are doing so well. I was in Bombay 2 days ago, and I can't remember the name of the store, but we went to a thrift store, and which my son had been talking about. So we went there, and they had actually just started on Instagram in lockdown, and they did so well that they could open a store in Bandra.
Oh my God! Yeah, but these are true stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that you can do anything. Don't worry about it.
That's very well put, actually. So does your education and a little bit of inclination toward textile bring about the love for handloom sarees that we always see you in, and is it influenced from there?
Okay, no. So honestly, no. I was like everybody else, always in a pair of jeans, and I still am often like that. But I'm trying to think of a time, maybe around 2011 or so. So that's 10 years. I loved saris, but I would wear saris for weddings, or some important occasion or something like that. But around 10 years ago, I think it was probably just before my grandmother passed away, when she had given me many of her saris, and I started wearing saris to work. And so all the saris you see me wear, and yes, I have too many, are my grandmother's and my mother's. And I think everything just shifts like magic when you get into a sari, meaning you feel better, you feel good. If on the worst day that you're having, you should just wear a sari, because it makes you feel, it makes you feel good. And wearing my mother's and my grandmother's sari really also made me feel that I have the power of generations of women behind me. And these are strong women, and with them, I could really do anything. So of course, I love wearing saris. I wear saris every day to work now. I think it makes me look good. I think it's really important, both for men and women. And this is not about fashion, but it's important that when you go into the workplace, you should be dressed for what you're going into. If you're sitting at home and sketching on the floor or whatever, that's fine. But if you're going for a meeting, dress for the meeting. If you're going maybe for a swim, you'll always dress for a swim. But presence, that is your executive presence, the way you talk, the way you look in some ways, makes people also understand that and respect that more. So especially for women, maybe that, so that we are like equal or better than everybody else in the boardroom. The boardroom is still dominated by men, but they love to have a different point of view, and they love to have, I think that today they would like to have more women in.
I'm sure it's more inclusive now, and talking about how important it is the way you present yourself in the boardroom, it also brings me to a very interesting question that we've been thinking of, is how you yourself, how does Nandita look at herself? When we look at you, or the students look at you, or your colleagues, or people whom you're senior to look at you, they look at you as a massive inspiration, somebody who's very strong, somebody who's a leader, somebody knows where she's going. But as a self-realization, do you also feel the same? And what is it like when you reflect at yourself today?
Okay. You want all my secrets out? Okay. So no, not. I am at 100% the same as everybody else. My kids give me as much of a tough time as everybody else. I went out last night to a place where a friend's son was singing. They were singing, playing the guitar. I behaved really badly. I shouted, I cried. So I am. If I had to describe myself, I think I'm absolutely a regular person who's being supported and loved. Of course, I love back also by so many people. And and I feel then that it is my job in some ways to do that right back. Because like I said, you cannot imagine the amount of care I've got from the world. And I try in my own way, whether it is with my students or my colleagues or my friends, to do whatever I can to support them. Apart from that, I think I still like to learn, or I'm still trying to figure out what to do with my life at 53. The things that I'm exploring is I'm trying to write. So I have a blog on a platform called Medium.
Please follow everyone.
It's called Medium. We read your blogs.
Oh yeah. So I try to write. I'm not a very good writer because my writing is very simple, but I'm trying that. I have given my name in for a PhD. I may do that.
Awesome.
I am also reading up on some scholarships that are available in the UK to do a little bit more on education leadership. I may do that. So I'm still exploring. During lockdown, I did a 5-day mindfulness workshop, and I've never done any meditation or anything in my life, and I really enjoyed that. So this was in May when I had COVID. Suddenly, I had nothing to do. So people keep sending you WhatsApps and you don't read it. So I saw while somebody had sent me this. And I said, okay, so anyway, I'm locked up in my room. I have nothing to do. Let me do this. And it was amazing. So I'm still a seeker. I don't know how to say that. So I haven't found, I'm still enjoying my journey, and I'm still trying to do new, different, interesting things. And I wish everybody else that pleasure also.
Talking about mindfulness, as much as our mental and emotional health is important, is the physical health.
Yes.
So, we also read that you walk a lot and you are passionate about that. Can you share that journey with us?
Sure.
And also to start it at any given age, and what actually so much goes behind just a physical activity. It brings to the table your mindfulness, your proficiency at work, everything put together.
Ridhima, I am not an athlete. There are many people, like my sister, she used to run for the state. I've always just been lazy and wanted to have a nice time with my friends. That was always, that was how I was when I was younger. I don't even know what made me do the switch, but somewhere around when I was 47, I'm 53 now. People do exercise. I never found any logic in it. Like, I would like to play basketball because it was fun to play with friends, not for any kind of physical fitness. Yeah. Somewhere around when I was 47, I saw that there was a 100-kilometer Oxfam trail walk somewhere between Lonavala, around Lonavala and Pune, that side. So I thought 100 kilometers, man. And I said, okay, it was on the 5th of December, which was my birthday. And so I said, okay, that's my gift to myself. But you needed to have, it's a team sport, meaning that 4 people have to walk together. That's how you get your timing or whatever. So I convinced my husband and 2 of my friends' daughters, and then we practiced, and it was just the most amazing experience of my life. And what that did to me, of course, it squeezed every bone, muscle, everything that I had in me had died by the end. But it made me realize that the joy of achieving some little targets, and that even though I've never exercised in my life, it was possible.
Yeah, true.
So after that, I've done another 100-kilometer walk near Bangalore. I've done 2 half marathons. Wow. I try my best to exercise or do at least 10,000 steps every day. I 100% know that this makes me feel good.
Yes.
It's not about I have a stomach. I mean, it's not about being beautiful or being in shape, but it makes me feel good. All the correct hormones, I think, must be coming out. You also feel that you've achieved something. True. Yes. There's so much rubbish that's going on in the world, but you can just smile still because, okay, I'm at 8,000 steps, just a little bit more, and I'm going to achieve my day's target. So there are small things to keep you happy and keep you going and help you to face the world. I've also encouraged a lot of other people now to exercise, and I like that also because, you send each other messages. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And it's been a great journey, and I truly do believe that everybody should try. And actually, if we're talking to students, again, I started exercising when I was 47, and I'm very good at it now. So don't worry. Just be yourself. you'll find different things that will inspire you and make you take your path. So don't try to pressurize yourself into being perfect.
True. So coming back to the design industry, since you are leading Pearl, Pearl is known not only in India but outside also. And we do believe, when we look at it as an outsider, maybe, but still, that you have a major role of putting it where it is today. One of the most sought after design institutes in our country, and people who also graduate from Pearl, we do see the alumni do very well. We read about them in a lot of magazines. We read about your role with the FDCI. So this is the chapter we'd like to know more about, and the contribution that you brought to Pearl. And how's it going so far, since you've given your major years to Pearl as a work life? And I'm sure you must be so attached to the role that you're playing.
Yes, Ridhima, I love Pearl, and I have been with Pearl for 20 years. I think you know that I am currently working with a partner company to Pearl. It's called the Global University Systems, and I continue to work very closely with Pearl in areas that are precious to me. I also work with UPS in Dehradun and some other an edtech company, etc., in these areas, and we could talk about that later. But I think Pearl is an amazing place to be at, as a professional, as a student, as a faculty member. And over the years, I've seen Pearl grow and develop in many ways. One is, of course, developed geographically. We have a super campus in Jaipur and Bangalore, in Mumbai. Second is to grow in terms of maybe just exposure. Because one of the things that I do believe is very important, and this is what a student gets at Pearl, is exposure to the world. So exposure to industry, exposure to international faculty, exposure to international students from around the world, exposure to projects, and everybody is driving that. There is nobody who is just coming and teaching and going, or coming and working and going. The whole time the conversation is about what more can we do? What project is available? Can I do this? Did you see this at British Council? Nottingham Trent University is saying this, or Adobe is doing this. So the entire focus is on what can we do to enhance our student, their lives, transform what they're doing. Yes, in the classroom, but relating to the world outside. Because at the end of the day, they need to be continuous learners, and they need to have that ambition, that agility, and that knowledge that they can do it. So when I joined Pearl, Ridhima, I was a faculty member. Then I was the head of the School of Business. And in 2011, they asked me to start a marketing team and a corporate relations or a placement team. And I said, no way, because I just love my students so much. And I have such super deep relationships and impact with my students. There's no way that I'm going to give up teaching. And then a very clever man said, yeah, okay, today you're just impacting 30 students, 60 students, but if you come and do this role, you will be able to impact 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. So I jumped at that, and I helped set up a marketing team, a placements team, and again say these are all new jobs. There was a time when I was looking after operations. So I also had legal and HR and all of them reporting into me. And then we opened the Mumbai campus and then the Bangalore campus. And here again, maybe is something that I want to say for students or young people. You don't have to be a technical expert always.
Yes.
Because what you have to do is you have to surround yourself with experts.
Correct.
Because people can then give you ideas, you can hear ideas, and then you can use your skills also to say, okay, this will work, this will not, this will work, let's put it together and let's make something happen. So you don't have to be the best at everything that you do. So don't be worried about that again. What's important, I feel, is another set of skills. Of course, technical skills are important, but as you grow more senior, the other set of skills, which are the adaptive skills, also become very important. So adaptive skills are about understanding yourself, understanding your team, learning how to work with people, collaborate with people, managing teams, knowing that everybody around you has to grow.
Yes, that's so important.
It's not about yourself. In fact, I was thinking of writing something, and maybe you are inspiring me, Khushbu and Ridhima, to write this, that the thing that's going to make you successful at work is not about promoting yourself. It's about promoting, supporting, and helping other people to grow, because they will push you ahead.
Yes.
And I do believe that all my journey at Pearl has only been because other people have pushed me ahead and have said that, yes, she can do it, she can do it, she can do it, including what I'm doing now.
My God, sometimes when we are being pushed, we don't even know that we are being pushed to blossom. Sometimes it crushes us. Sometimes we do not know what to do with that pressure. Very few can actually, they chisel in this journey when they are being pushed. And I think, though you say that you were being pushed, it is you who took the pressure in a way.
Pushed and supported. Not pushed without, pushed and supported and mentored and everybody always made me feel that I can do it. So I said, okay.
If you feel I can. I think it is so important for businesses to have this collaborative approach, especially today, when there are no boundaries actually, and we can collaborate with anyone in any space, in any corner of the world. And we at ISOT and we as women entrepreneurs are also looking that we can learn something from you professionally and collaborate in our small little way and contribute wherever we could, so that just the horizons, like what we are learning from you, this is how the horizon expands. And to all our young designers, students and friends, it is extremely important that we understand that it is not a journey of one's success alone. It has to be collaborative, one has to be inclusive, and one has to respect that there is someone else who's much better than you in whatever you do, so best to learn. And I think Nandita has not only thought about this, but has actually followed it in her journey. And we see that you are someone whose success has not come overnight. You have climbed the ladder the way it should have been. And we look at you as a self-made professional. Not saying the term woman because doesn't make sense to whether a man or a woman, or do you feel that it would be different if you were a man? What do you feel about it?
I'm not sure actually, because I never looked at myself as a woman. Okay, but maybe that's because I've been quite privileged, like I said. I do accept that it is very difficult for a lot of women, but you have to find a way to put your best face on, to put your best mood in, to keep all your power in place and make things work. And again, don't be scared and don't think that anything is too small or too big or too difficult, and you can do things in your own way. but you have to do something. There's no, I mean, nobody should say, oh, I can't do anything. You have to, because everybody can. And everybody is different. Everybody is special in their own way. So you have to push yourself to find your way and make it happen. I don't think that I would have been more successful if I was a man. I think that a lot of men have appreciated and supported and mentored me also to be who I am. I'm going to try to say something else. As women or as young women, our social construct, at least the social construct while I was growing up, was always that, you know, you have to help, you have to do service, you know, you have to support that emotions. All those are what a woman has, and those are what is good about a woman. And maybe that's good, because if you are able to empathize, if you are able to care, that's how you build your team. That's how your team believes in you. But I think it's also important to be able to draw some boundaries. So for example, whether it's with your children or with your spouse, and it's not easy to do, to say that, yes, sorry, I'm going to do this. An example is from a baby book. I can't remember. When my elder son was born, there was a guy called Dr. Spock, and he used to write these books on how to look after children, or, you know, how to have baby, how to look after your babies. And one of the things that he said really stuck in my mind, because he said, your child, even if it's a small baby, needs to know that you have other things to do. So even if you don't, you should say, son, I have to now cut the vegetables. So the child knows that the mother has something else to do.
Yes.
And that everything must not revolve around the child. I'll give another example, and this is something my sister told me, and it's really stuck with me, is when you get on an aeroplane, they always say when the oxygen mask falls, if you have a child, first put the mask on yourself. So it's really important as women that we realize, yes, we must be loving and caring, like men should be loving and caring, and many men are loving and caring, but you have to look after yourself. You have to put that oxygen mask on yourself first. Only then will you be able to help other people. So keeping our cup full is something that's really important.
That's so true. That's so true.
That's
And
true.
it's a life lesson which comes out of experience, and which is why you are able to say what you're able to say.
Exactly.
And it's so true too, because till the time we don't secure ourselves or fasten our own seatbelt, we can't do anything else. But
it's not easy.
It's not easy. It's not
but
easy.
we got to use all the tools,
yes,
that we have to try to make it.
Yes. So as young designers, not everyone looks forward to practice, and not everyone looks forward to be in the straight line design field. And some are looking, like you said, it's not always important to have the technical know-how, but you may have good managerial and leadership skills. Even though you come from a design or a thought process background, the creativity will eventually help you somewhere, and it will guide you somewhere, whatever you have. So is there any message that you'd like to tell all designers who are not looking forward just to become a design professional, but seek more out of their own backgrounds or degrees?
Sure. So for one, this is the best time in the world to
Yes.
be a young designer.
Yes.
Everybody is recognizing the importance of design, and more everybody is seeing, or many people are seeing, that it's not about aesthetics, it's not about making things prettier, but designers play a role in solving problems and really creating impact. So there are so many jobs available. One can be a design researcher. You can join multidisciplinary. You have these consulting firms that use design thinking to solve a lot of the problems that there are in the world, including branding problems, etc. So you can join a company like that, or you can write. I mean, now design, I mean, the number of design magazines there are, design blogs that there are, that writing is a huge opportunity, even to start a course in design writing. I think that's something that you can do. And you can join companies that we never expected students can join, like even the tech companies,
Yes.
like Accenture, like IBM, like GE. Everybody is looking at a designer. You're not going to design the oxygen concentrator, but you can work with the engineer, because what you have is the empathy to understand the consumer, not just say that, okay, I understand the consumer, but you have learned the system of how to understand. You have learned that you can ideate and come back, test it in the market sometimes, and come back, make changes, iterate. You have learned that it's okay to fail.
Yes.
Engineers are never taught that.
Yes.
And nothing gets made in a perfect way. So you have, I mean, these are all valuable lessons that only a design student or a young designer knows. And so you are very valuable then to the engineer, or the mathematician, or the guy who's doing public policy. Everybody is looking to have a designer on the table. So this is the best time. Explore, take up a job. Don't leave it in 1 month, I would say. You don't have to stay for 20 years like me in the same job, and things have changed in the world, but try for a year and a half, because you want to also see that what can you do? Because when you do something, then you realize, okay, I'm quite good at design research, or I'm good at solving problems, or I would like to work more with natural material. But you'll only realize that once you spend some time doing it.
Yes.
Then you can find the next job, and maybe things will change in the direction, I mean, according to the kind of jobs that you're doing. And entrepreneurship also. I mean, I don't think there's ever been such a good time, but you have to have guts. I think it's a really special person who can be an entrepreneur. I don't think I have that kind of guts, but if you do, and I know a lot of young students, I mean, a lot of young graduates or people who finished, like say from Pearl, they call me and say, ma'am, can we discuss something? And when they're telling me what they do, I'm like, wow. And aren't you scared about this? And they're not. So it's amazing. So I think entrepreneurship is also a huge area that has become possible. It's the best time. So don't worry about placements and getting like the best offer. Maybe the people who get the best offer are not the people who are doing well 15, 20 years later.
Correct. Absolutely right.
Find something that matches you, and where you will continue to learn. Okay.
So that's so important, and it's a very strong message that it's not important that someone who gets a good offer in the placement time is somebody who will continue getting that. Maybe you will grow out as a professional to become somebody else, to become somebody stronger and smarter. And this is a very, very nice message to all our young designers who are seeking to start their career and who are actually seeking guidance from mentors like you. Unfortunately, in our country, there is a huge gap when it comes to the mentors and the students. And sometimes it's not very approachable, but thanks to the times, like you said, that we can all connect. This is the best time to connect, the best time to learn, the best time to even fall down. because it's okay, and you have the the scenario which is so different that people will fail and people will get up and people will run. So it has been the most experimental phase that we have seen in our lifetime as yet, and businesses, models, everything has changed, and so has design.
Yeah. So Ridhima, I want to say something here about mentors, and I am seeing actually more and more, and maybe because of the pandemic, there are so many conferences, there are so many talks, Design Up and ADI keeps doing something or the other. And I think that there are a lot of people who are happy to help young people.
Yes.
You can't just go to them and say, help me. So listen to them. Firstly, try to attend as many talks as possible. Listen to them. See who you have a connect with. Maybe make some comment on what they're saying. Maybe ask a question so they remember you. Or when you approach them, you can always say, I really liked what you said at the Design Up talks, and this, what you said, resonates with me. And I would like to ask you a question about something, and I don't think anybody will say no.
True.
I think what people in the industry don't like is if you just say that, okay, can you help? Or will you be my mentor? But you have to make that connection, understand who you're talking to, why, what do you want from them? What can they offer you? And it's like there's so much free advice today because of all these online conferences. We would have never been able to see, what, and around the world, everything, even the Adobe Max, everything was free.
Yes.
Or at some highly discounted prices. So there's so much information that's available. It's like having free mentoring.
Yes. Also, one more thing about design career that we have seen a shift in the past few years is initially we used to look at our professors when we were studying as people who spent almost all their lives probably in the same university or the same college doing probably repetitive work. They would have grown as researchers, but their work or their job role was repetitive. But this generation sees a lot of shift. Like you said, one need not fear change. A lot of our students, when they shift their jobs or, they shift something else or cities or, a small little change, and it brings a sense of doubt in themselves. Or even when we are starting a new journey or a new business, sometimes we doubt, how it will happen, but we are actually in a time where the change will happen. Every single professional, they say, will change the course of their career a minimum of 5 times after 2000 is what I read. And do you also feel same about this, or what do you think about this?
So one is, I completely agree that change will happen, and they say change is the only constant. Change is great. Because it really forces you to face things, forces you to evaluate who you are, why you are, helps you to understand what your strengths are. So I think that is fabulous. Yeah, I don't think that this is something to be scared of, and
yes,
possibly find a support group of strong women or women or friends, maybe 1 or 2 mentors, so that when you go to a new place or a new job, you got somebody to fall back on, come back and talk about, this happened, that happened, what would you do? I find people ask such amazing questions that, so how did you feel when you changed a city, or what would you do if your boss said this to you? There's so many people with experiences, even your own friends. Everybody has had different experiences. So you share your experiences and then learn also from their experiences. Say, oh, wow, okay. So Swati did that. Yeah, maybe I can try that. Or maybe that works for me or not. So embrace change if it's possible. because change will be there. And you will always, there will always be, say, your parents who are hesitant, nahi, Bombay nahi jana chahiye, ya, you know, aise, you have to be careful and what ladki log should do and not do, etc. It's important, don't like scare your parents too much, but try to calm them down, try to find some good examples, maybe within your family, etc. Because once you make that change and once your parents see that you're happy, they will be happy. They want you to be happy, but naturally they're worried. Oh my God, what will you do? Etc. So show your confidence in that change, and I think just embrace change. It's good.
Speaking of change, which is the next change or the chapter that you are looking for in your life?
Oh, I think I mentioned it before, but I do feel I want to learn something more. So I am exploring a PhD or a master's in education leadership, or I even looked at a course. It's a 1-year course on coaching, because I do spend a lot of time with my teams and I'd really like to help them well. You know, if somebody comes to me with something, I want to be able to give them the not that I can give the advice, but I want to give them, enable them to find their answers. So maybe I'll do that. And like I said, I'm experimenting with mindfulness now. So I'm also lucky that my elder son is working and my younger son is getting ready to go to college. So they don't need me at all. So therefore I get the space. So don't, again, that's for students. Don't think you have to do everything.
Yes.
There's the right time for everything. So suddenly I'm feeling free because I've got these 2 huge, big young men who are capable of doing everything by themselves and they don't need me. So that is so exhilarating, or, you know, it gives me also that space to experiment and try something new.
Yeah. So I'd like to almost come to an end by asking, if you weren't the professional that you are today, what is the alternate career and what would you be if it had nothing to do with the design or the corporate world?
I'm not sure I know what I would be, but I know that I had always wanted to do something for either children with special needs or for the less fortunate. And I am actually exploring that quite strongly, because suppose I have to retire at 60 officially, then I must plan and have something ready for when I do. So I think I would have always been in education. So
why don't you consider politics?
Even talking to you is making me learn. See, because initially when you asked me, I said I'd never thought of education. I did Arvind Mills, NIFT, whatever. But I think now that you're asking me, I'm thinking that yes, I think I would have always been in some form of education, or I would be a hippie, I think.
That would be interesting.
I would love, if I can, and I love to travel. And I don't want to like go for 1 day to Paris or 3 days. I would love to go and live in different countries so I can learn their culture, buy the cheese from the shop, you know. So I would love to be able to do that. I have traveled a lot, but I think I would love to do that again.
So we are waiting for your staycation channel very soon.
Yeah.
And you must also, since you inspire so many people and you have been a strong woman leader, probably consider politics as one of the roles where it does not actually mean the active politics or getting a role or something, but the way you can influence so many people and like you wanted to help certain people. I don't know, we would love to see you as a leader in that role too.
I think you're much smarter than me. I think I definitely don't think I would be able to, I'm not like, I don't think I'm smart enough. I could, I'm not sure about politics at all. I don't know enough. Maybe now I'll find out that what does it take and what does one have to do. But I think
You know,
it's really tough.
Yeah, but after achieving so much, the enthusiasm you show to learn is extraordinary. And you know, the fact that you are actually registering for the PhD and you know, going ahead and studying, and that is so brilliant. And I thought I keep talking to Khushbu about it. She completed her master's before me. I completed, and I just did a course from Oxford. So, and all the time I get here from my own children, my two boys, and sometimes they do get embarrassed when I go to these universities since they are small. But as they are growing up, the only lesson that I also want them to understand is that you always learn. We never know enough. Yeah, so we, apart from bringing and elevating communities of students and your colleagues, we also hear that you did not leave the segment of the society which has a taboo. People who go through something called as a jail or a prison in our country, but are equally productive. We are extremely touched the way you took the creativity to their doors and brought out something which is so different for the Indian society to see. Can you please tell us about that?
Sure, yes. Actually, our students have been doing workshops for inmates of Tihar jail, and also working with them on product development ideas, because they do have they make candles and gift items, etc. So our students have been doing this off and on. But then we wanted to do something that was a little more permanent. So we kind of went through the design thinking process where students who were doing a workshop were told to to understand the inmates better. And one of the things that came through very strongly is that they have a lot of time. That's one thing that came through, which is not occupied. And the second thing is that they have a very great worry about going back into their societies. Yes. So we explored this a little bit better, and there was a very lovely DG of the Tihar jails, Mr. Sudhir Yadav, and he said yes. He said, people who go back go back into society, they are shunned by their families, and sometimes they just commit a crime to come back.
Yes.
Because it's safer here, because they're not independent, they're not able to, or they are already bad news in society, etc. So then the thought was that how do we bring dignity to help the inmates who go back out into society? So we worked with Tihar Jail, and we set up a fashion laboratory at a lab like you have on campus at the Tihar jail. It was to the Tihar Women's Jail. And it's beautiful. We gave sewing machines. We trained 2 people to teach them. And they were supposed to, the inmates are supposed to practice for maybe an hour a day. And the lab assistant used to say that they just never left because they wanted to do more and more and more. So it was really nice. We have a 6-month course, and this course just keeps on rolling. Students line up to do this course, and we've had very interesting stories of people once they've graduated who have set up small units in their towns or villages, and they're able to do, some people are doing, say, alteration, making children's clothes, things like that. But this gives dignity, it gives independence, and it allows the women to hold their heads up high and offer services to other people. So people come to them, and their families are also then happier with them. This jail, this fashion lab has actually expanded. We got funding from a company, and have also set up embroidery textile looms, etc., so that they can learn about that. So that, yeah, it's really amazing. And the students also benefit because they get the opportunity to go in there, interact, and really understand that they're just the same as us. You know, there are many people who are in there as inmates also because of circumstances, because they've had such difficult lives. Sometimes they've done something for self-protection. Sometimes they've done something to feed their family. Yeah. And, but like all of us, they want to be happy. They want to be accepted. They want to lead a good life. And this really is good for our students to understand and help them be better human beings. And who knows, when they go out into the world, they too will do something that's going to help others.
Yeah, that is such a constructive use of design for the society. I mean, and that is something that we underrated, but creativity can actually be so constructive and make so many lives. And you have not only impacted the lives of students, but society as large. And we come to know about it more when we speak to you in person. It is extraordinary to speak to you today, and we can't thank you enough that you actually taken out time to speak to you. It was so much fun on a personal level too. Really, thank you so much.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm always available to talk to people. I think I wish I had more days, more hours in my day and more days in my month. But I love it completely, and I think that what you guys are doing is amazing. It's very difficult to be an entrepreneur and to hang in there, and I guess it's good that you have each other, because I think that is something that's really important also. So that's
a women-run organization.
Yeah, super. Super. Congratulations to you all, and all the best also.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. We learned a lot, and like there's a lot of personal takeaways from this particular talk for us.
Thank you so much once again.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.